I want someone to step in and take my job and not only continue to do my job, but do it better than I was doing my job. That's what our goal should be as leaders. I think they have to have the want. You have to identify the folks that want to do it, because there's people that could do it, yes, but do they want to do it? Are they asking for more? Are they looking for work? Do they have that hunger? Are they trying to better themselves, go to college, get a degree, whatever education, critical care, just trying to educate themselves and further better themselves? You identify those people, and then you pour into those people.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Tensa Leadership Podcast. My name's Eric Claus, and I'm honored to be able to be your host. We are here with Brian McNeely, a great friend and a great leader within the state, and I'm so looking forward to sharing this conversation with you today. Brian, welcome, my friend.
Thank you, Eric. Good to be here. Good to see you.
Man, we're excited. We've been trying to do this for quite some time, and to be able to have the conversation with you, is certainly something I've been looking forward to.
Me as well. Yeah, no, we talked, and I'm glad we're making it happen.
Definitely. Well, man, we're going to jump right in to something that you had shared with me. There's a quote, and I could not think of a better way to start this podcast with a quote that means a lot to you. I would love for you to read it and to share it with our viewers.
Sure. So I'm a huge fan of this author and leadership mentor. So I'll start with the quote first, but it starts by saying there's no easy way. There's only hard work, late nights, early mornings, practice, rehearsal, repetition, study, sweat, blood, toil, frustration, and discipline. And that's from Jocko Willink. So who some would say that I have a man crush on, but it's okay. Like there's worse guys that have a man crush on.
Well, one of his books certainly influenced me. We've had conversations about it, and you've taught out of it. I've taught out of it. Extreme ownership, and you must own everything in your world, and that certainly means a lot. And yeah, it kind of sums leadership up. Why does he have such an influence on you?
I think it's a combination of things. I don't know his personality type, but I see a lot of similarities in his personality type and mine. He captivates my attention when he speaks. When I listen to Extreme Ownership, the book, the audiobook, and then the dichotomy of leadership audio, it just captures my attention. And he puts things into just a way that it clicks for me. It makes sense. The military background that we share, I wasn't a Navy SEAL by any means, but the thought processes, the mindsets, I can relate to. So I think just all those things kind of drew me to that. And once I read it, it was those aha moments when you read a book or you take a medical class and it just clicks. And that was it for me.
So you talk about military experience, Brian. So did that have a huge influence on you and getting into EMS?
I think so. Yeah. I had never really planned to go into EMS. My father was a firefighter, paramedic. All my grandfathers, all my uncles had been in the Navy. So my first shot was at the Navy. I ended up going Army as a medic just to get the experience so that I could get out and pursue a career in the fire service, which kind of translated into pursuing a career in medicine. Because when we stayed here in Clarksville, Tennessee, there was a stark difference in what I knew growing up in the fire department to how it operated here. And I wanted to be a medic. I'd been a medic in the Army, so I pursued the paramedic side of the house.
Yeah, that's absolutely incredible. Tell us a little bit about Montgomery County for those that are not familiar, with where you guys are located and the service size and, kind of what it is that you do up there.
Sure. So Montgomery County is northeast of Nashville. We're right on the Kentucky-Tennessee state line. So it's land-wise, it's a large area that we cover. We're a relatively large service. We have about 140 employees, 12 stations, 14 units on the road every day. So, we make about 35-ish thousand calls a year. So, we stay busy. We have a combination of 24 or 48 employees and a 12-hour matrix set of employees. As we move towards transitioning the majority of our busy trucks to that 12-hour matrix, we have intention this coming January, to flip 2 more trucks to that 12-hour matrix. So that's just a real small snapshot of us.
Yeah, one of the things that I was pretty intrigued about that I think the viewers and the listeners would bring value to them is most services will do a 24/48 or a 24/72. And did I understand it correctly? You did a survey with your employees, and that is not the route they wanted to go. Is that correct?
Correct. Right. We did do a survey, kind of polled the staff, and I think we decided early on that the 24/72 just wasn't feasible. So that the 12-hour matrix is what we wanted to move forward with. And then we asked the staff for their interest in it, but also how they would like to see it. Ask them the why, like why the 12s, but also how would you like to see it come to fruition? Would it be a metro schedule where it's 2 days, 2 nights, then off for 4? Would it be a Pittman style schedule where it's 2 on, 2 off, 3 on, 2 off, 2 on, 3 off, that kind of matrix? And the staff picked that Pittman style matrix. So that's what we ultimately went with.
Okay. And the staff seem to enjoy that. And, that's why you're converting additional resources and trucks.
100%. I mean, it's dual reason. The staff does enjoy it. Everyone that I've spoken to says, I wish I could have done this 10 years ago. And then also, for safety, 24/48s. At a busy service, when you're running 12, 13, 14 calls on one truck, in 24 hours, at 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, you're not as sharp as you are at 3 or 4 in the afternoon, and everything starts to suffer. So I think it's just the right migration of EMS is to move towards the 12s.
Yeah, well, we appreciate those insights on that. And I know there's a lot of work being done with this and, the different schedules and the different changes that are happening. And I'm glad to see it because I think that is what we need to attract and keep talented individuals, to provide service for the community. So, and you're the assistant chief up there at Montgomery County. And how long have you been in that role? How long have you been at Montgomery?
So I started at Montgomery County in 2003. After I got out of the Army as a medic, started part-time. So kind of, I would say, worked my way up. I started off as a part-time EMT, went to paramedic school, became a field training officer a few years after graduating from paramedic school, then migrated to the education officer position for a couple of years. Did that for a while, then jumped back into the field as a shift lieutenant, then became a shift captain, and then now I'm the assistant chief of operations here at the department. So yeah, since 2003. And I've been in this role since January of this year, so almost a year.
Yeah, well, we look forward to kind of diving into that, through your experience and so forth. I wanted to back up just a little bit, and this is kind of lighthearted and kind of funny. Well, congrats to you. You've won the Educator of the Year award for TIMSA, who is behind this podcast. So we got to interact during that event. We both received awards. And we were up there yesterday and we were interacting. We were doing a training. There's a video that is circulating around your service, and you bring a different meaning to, how can you say, making your students learn from as real of a scenario as you can. But there's a legend about you birthing a baby, and kind of walk us through this. And I'm not talking from the provider standpoint. I'm talking from an actual patient standpoint, but walk us through that, man.
Yeah, I just hope that video doesn't make it onto the internet. There are some little gift stickers that people have made for their phones, and it's quite funny. But yeah, so it is true that video does exist, and it started a few years ago teaching the EMT basic class, just trying to. I enjoy teaching and trying to make it as real or as fun as I can. I do have a goofy side, contrary to what some people may say, and that's one of the reasons I like teaching, because I could kind of not be a different person, but just use different tactics than you can in a normal job in the classroom. You can get away with a little bit more in the classroom. I feel like appropriate by all means, but right. So I just thought one day, I was like, how can I make this more interesting other than just looking at this mannequin on the table and just talking about it? We try to make it real, try to get them out of their comfort zones, stress them a little bit, if nothing else, make them laugh and be uncomfortable. And maybe that would, just stress them a little bit. So I said, well, I could put this hip and this belly on my belly under a dress and lay on a cot and push the baby out just as easy as it could happen in the classroom. So I found a wig, I got a blanket, and I got the help of some of our other educators here in the building, and didn't tell the classroom, but just went into one of the wet labs, got on the cot, got all suited up, and then they were the crews or the students were handed a jump bag and said, "You've got a patient in this room, go ahead and meet your patient." So as soon as they opened the door, I just went into the acting and the screaming and the yelling and the, I have to push, and the baby's coming, and so I'm just pushing the baby out through the mannequin under the dress, and my legs are up, and they see this mannequin with the baby, crowning and all the things. And while I'm doing it, I'm acting the fool, and they're having a hard time looking at me in the eye because I have a wig on. And so, but it's become a tradition almost with every class that it's most fun with the EMT basics, because they have no experience in EMS. They're starting out. So you can really catch them off guard. It makes them incredible. Big grown men, as red as a bee, just blushed and embarrassed because I've got a dress on and a wig. So.
Well, I've seen the pictures and I've seen the little stickers, and it is so funny. And I know your team that is listening to this can certainly appreciate that. And I hope for your sake it doesn't go viral, but I kind of hope it does, because I think
it's fine. I'm an open book. I've got nothing to hide. So
oh, it was great. It's great. I love to hear stories like that where instructors actually really do, I guess, above, what you would typically think to educate students. And it does leave a lasting impact. You remember instructors when you were in school, and the same wise, for me. And let's talk about young people in this profession. So, what are your thoughts about how we can attract young people to this profession, as many of us are getting older and really thinking about that?
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think it's difficult. I think when you and I were starting this career, it's a different time. The thought processes about careers and jobs are different. But, I think these classes, the EMT basic class, or maybe an EMR, emergency medical responder class in a high school, can pique the interest of folks that might pursue a career in medicine or EMS. I think we've seen over years that people can use EMS kind of as a stepping stone. That's not a bad thing, to go to nursing school, to go to be a physician, go to PA school, flight nurse, whatever the case may be. But we get good grounded, good solid foundation in EMS, and we build on that and we move into a different career. But, to keep ambulances on the road, we need to find a way to keep folks in EMS. Money has always been, what everyone says, but I don't think money is the sole. Will it attract people? Yes, but I don't think people look at money the same way that you and I may look at it when it comes to long-term retirement. But I think good leadership, showing that we care, and trying to help the staff understand the why and make them feel involved, giving them input and helping them understand the why, I think, are great ways that we can keep them. And if I think we do that and we show that as a department, that also can be a form of recruitment, because the word spreads.
Yeah. I'm excited about some of the young people that are entering the field, just with what they have access to and how they learn. And it's refreshing. They're very smart. I think many of them just need an opportunity from, older people like us that are in the field that, truly believe in them and will, help them and offer input. And so I am optimistic about really the future. I know, when we all went through, COVID, obviously that rattled a lot of things. But, now I think we're really starting to see the interest of, younger people wanting to be part of something bigger than themselves. And yeah, so I'm pretty fired up about that.
Yeah, and I think the transition away from the 24/48s to the 12-hour matrix, I think, is also a game changer. You're at work more, but you work a lot less hours, and it's a lot easier on your body. Years ago, 24/48s, that was the golden job. You only worked 10 days a month. You had time to do all the things you wanted to do on your days off. But I think that transition's migrating over to the 12s.
Yeah, we look forward to hearing more about that. And, I'm sure a lot of people are going to be trying different things. And we're glad that you guys are having success with that and will be a role model for some.
Yeah, we are too.
I wanted to go back to your military experience. So, many professionals, EMS professionals and firefighters do have military experience. A lot don't either. And did that really shape your leadership journey and, for the tough days in EMS? What was that like? Is that something that?
Yeah, no, I think it did. I think in any job that you have, as you grow, you don't know what you don't know, and you may fall under one leader that's just knocking it out of the park, and you follow them through hell and beyond. And then you have other leaders that I had in the military that I had great ones and I had some not great ones. So I think I just made mental notes over the years of, I don't ever want to do that, or I don't want to be like that, or I want to emulate that. So, I think whether you're in public safety as a young up and coming leader, or you're in the military, you're learning from those leaders. But, being in the military and then migrating to a public safety or a paramilitary like organization, it just flowed for me. It's what I knew. It's what I grew up on. So it worked well.
Yeah. And it introduced you to a lot of, I guess, concepts, right? Discipline and hard work and just, that structure. Completing a mission, having a mission that's bigger than you, being part of a team, all those things, integrity, discipline, like you mentioned, right? Yeah. So you've been able to hold several positions there at Montgomery. Kind of talk to us about, your leadership journey, within EMS, and, was it easy? Did it come natural? Kind of walk us through that. Now you're sitting in one of the executive positions. So
I'm not so sure it came easy, with my personality type. It's just, I guess, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, I've always been kind of like, what's the next step? You get to where you're at, like, where do I go from here? And again, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I got into the job, and, when I came into the job in this department, it was a different time. You had to wait almost 2 years to even get a full-time job. So there was no movement. There was no transition. You had leaders that had been in positions for a very long time, because once you got in, nobody left. So that was the difficult part of it. But once I started to get my feet wet as a paramedic, I feel like things picked up some. Became a field training officer. Tested a few times for lieutenant, didn't make it, and then eventually was able to move into that training officer role, and then back into the field as a lieutenant.
What do you think are some of the challenges that you faced and that other leaders face? And, obviously one of the things that stand out to me is that you didn't make it a couple of go rounds for promotion, but you never gave up. So was that the most challenging part, or were there some other things about your leadership journey that kind of stand as like, wow, that was tough to overcome?
That would probably be the most challenging part, because again, with my personality type, I don't like to not be successful at something. So that was a harder pill to swallow, but I was also the young kid on the block. I was the new kid on the block, the young guy that didn't grow up here. So, I don't want to say I was an outsider, because that's not what I was, but, I hadn't been here for 15 years. I'd only been here for a short period of time, and I was still I think people were still trying to figure me out, and just to be a part of that culture change. But I would say once that transition happened and I felt like some momentum. I don't feel that there was any other major, just making sure that I had a grasp on the position I was in. I didn't get hungry for the next step prematurely, but to be able to do the job that I'm doing well and be confident in that.
Yeah, I think Brian, one of the standout things on that is you had mentioned that people were trying to figure you out. And I think that goes for all of us, right, in leadership positions. Things don't necessarily go our way, but the value of taking your time and building trust, amongst your colleagues and building that relationship really goes so far, because the only thing that position gives you is just a little bit of time, but it's very, very difficult. But, has that made an impact on you building relationships and trust? And if so, how did you go about doing that over a period of years?
Yeah, 100%. I learned probably the hard way that, you have to build relationships. And that's what leadership is built on, is relationships. There's a stark difference between leading and managing, but relationships come first. You have to know your people. You have to know what makes them tick. I would even say go so far as you have to know their personality type, especially fellow leaders or direct reports that you're led to lead, that you have to understand them. And then they have to also understand you. You have to be transparent. And it just makes conversations so much easier when you have a relationship. Good conversations or difficult conversations. It just makes things easier, and it doesn't turn into this monumental, stressful event, because you've built a relationship. They know what makes you tick. You know what makes them tick. You know how to approach them because you know their personality type. And it's just easier. And people can trust you because they know you. They have a relationship with you.
Yeah. I kind of look at this trust thing as deposits and withdrawals in the leadership journey. So, the deeper your relationship, and when they know that you care, you're building your bank account deposits and a lot of deposits. And unfortunately, as leaders, we have to make some withdrawals because change and, we have to do things that are not popular. But if you go around making withdrawals from your team all the time, you're not going to have trust. So,
Right.
for those that are listening, the little things that you do when they know that you care really adds to the deposits in the relationship as leaders. And I think that's one of the things that we need to focus on is being able to do that. You've done an exceptional job with that. I've seen you interact with your team and you have you've earned their respect, you respect them, and it's a neat thing to see.
It definitely is rewarding, for sure.
So let's talk about some defining moments in your leadership career. Were there any, things that kind of stood out that really shaped you, whether that was a negative experience or a positive experience that really is like, wow, that just made such a huge impact on my career that has benefited you now and the team that you have?
Sure. So I can think of a couple scenarios, and it's been later on in my leadership journey. When I was in the Army and as a young leader, I didn't know what I didn't know. I was young and dumb. And Army leadership, when I served, I can't speak to what it's like now, but it was a much different concept. I think universally, when I was in the Army, it was, you told your troops what to do and they did it, and you didn't have to explain the why. You do because I say. That was kind of that mindset. So that coming over to the civilian world in public safety, that doesn't necessarily float. So as I grew within this department, I think one instance jumps out in mind where I made one of many mistakes that I've made and just lost my cool with an employee. And I think that hurt that relationship. It was already strained just because of just different personality types, but I, default aggressive at times. That's one of my weaknesses. And I defaulted aggressive in this scenario. And I think lost my cool. And I think that damaged that relationship. So that would be a negative scenario. And then a positive scenario was when I was my last position, when I was a shift captain. One of my lieutenants, he's now the shift captain, Garland Lester. He and I have always been good friends, but didn't really know what made each other tick, personality type wise. He was able to go through the leadership course that the county has put some of us through, and as have I. And then looking more into different personality types, the Enneagram, we had an epiphany because we mentioned Jocko earlier, that the Extreme Ownership book. Early in my shift captain role here, I said, okay, I polled the lieutenants that worked with me, and I said, what are some things we need to change? And my goal was, if it had anything to do with the shift captain role, it was mine. I did it. I wasn't going to pawn it off on anybody. I was trying to own everything, right? So I carried that extreme ownership mentality, but that goes to a fault at some points, because when I own everything, I don't delegate anything, I don't build leaders, I don't share knowledge, then I'm doing a disservice to those that are trying to progress and move up. And that was with Garland. He finally understood what made me tick. I finally understood what made him tick. And once we understood that, we flowed much better. But he challenged me and he said, hey, listen, you're not sharing this knowledge. Give it to me. Let me do this. Show me how to do it. Teach me, because I want to do this job. I want to learn how to do it. And if you own everything and do it yourself, then you're not sharing. You're not growing anybody. And it was it was a positive experience, but it was a kick to the gut, because I realized he's right. He's right, owning it. And Jocko speaks about that in the dichotomy of leadership, about extreme ownership. But yeah, so once Garland and I kind of figured that out, it was smooth sailing. So.
Yeah, that's really interesting. And you gave two great examples. One of the things that I think with doing what we do, I would say the default of being aggressive may be assertive, right? Maybe another way of looking at that, because, right, we have to go on a scene and we have to make decisions within seconds that may not be popular when you get crazy bystanders that are running around the scene. And so that is a natural default, I think, just from our leadership styles. And one of the things that comes to me, and when we teach in one of our leadership courses, about one of the hardest things to do as leaders is to control your emotion. And if you become emotional and you feel what the other person is feeling, then you're going to lose as a leader. It's not going to end well. So are there any strategies about, how we can deal with problems from your position And is it easier to control emotion right now? And are there any tips that you could give the viewers on that? Because it is a very real challenge. And it's something that does not come easy, I think, for many people, including myself.
Yeah, it's not easy. I can 100% agree with that. It comes very easy to me to be assertive and, default assertive or default aggressive. When I worked in the field, things were I felt like the pace was much faster than now that I'm in more of an office environment. So that kind of fed the fire for my default aggressiveness, I think. I think being the benefit that I have now is that I can step back. I can give it a little time, sleep on it. I have the ability to do that now, to where I don't have to make a split decision. I don't have to, approach something when I'm heated. And I have learned, even in parenting and in my role here, that if I'm heated and I'm really, really upset about something, I need to just walk away. And that is not the time to send an email. That's not the time to make a phone call. It's not the time to send a text or to have a conversation. Like, I probably need to just tap out for a little bit. So that's really what I do. I don't address it. I let it simmer till I know that I'm calm and I can have a calm conversation, but still get my point across without losing my composure.
I hope people go back and replay that, because that is one of the best pieces of advice that I think leaders could do, is you don't have to react in real time. Sometimes, and I don't know if you feel this way, sometimes when there's an email that goes out, there's a lot of people that are copied on it, and our natural instinct is to be part of that and react. And sometimes I can't get to those emails. And let's say I'm traveling, and by the end of the day, all of these people respond and it's already addressed. I never had to get involved. I never had to get emotional.
Right.
And it's very interesting that I think there is such a difference between leadership and taking our time and making sure that we don't waste the move, because there's a lot of risk to it if you do the wrong thing. But you're right. Most of us are not in crisis mode. If there's a crisis, it's easy to respond, right? You know what to do. Right. But I think we create some crises that really should not be crises.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. I'm guilty of it. I know I am.
I think we all are, right? That's just that's just what happens with our type of roles and responsibilities of leading. And so I know one of the things that you do, Brian, is you're a huge fan of reading and listening to podcasts. And I do feel that there's a lot of people that certainly do that. And has that made a big impact on you and, the personal growth and professional growth, not just from experience, but learning from others? Kind of walk us down that on how that's impacted your career.
Yes. Early on in my career, I had no idea what a podcast was, or was not a big reader. I've read, but didn't definitely read to try and better myself. I picked it up from you, actually, the podcast idea. You said, if you got downtime, listen to a podcast, listen to an audiobook. So yeah, I've read some books that really jumped out to me. I think we mentioned a few of them already. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink, his Dichotomy of Leadership. And then one of the other books that I've read that really I heard about it on his podcast. He talked about it on one of his podcasts, but it's called About Face by Colonel David Hackworth. So it's military based, tells the story of one of the stories of his Colonel Hackworth's life as a unit commander in Vietnam. But it's a testament to leadership, and just the lessons that you can take from that and translate into your career and job are just too many to count. So it's just a great book. But I love podcasts, I think, more than I do a whole book. So I'll listen to podcasts on my way to work every morning, just a 30, 40-minute podcast, and just knock them out that way. I bounce between Jocko's podcast, Andy Stanley's podcast, Craig Groeschel's leadership podcast, the TEMSA leadership podcast. So, and then I listen to some other health-focused ones that, aren't necessarily about leadership, just about health, physical health, mental health, those types of things. So yeah, so I love the podcast. And then, as far as books, I think everyone should read the 5 Levels of Leadership, and all the John Maxwell books are also great reads.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. We share that. It has certainly made an impact in my life. Yes, we learn different things, but I think what it does is it forces you to think about things differently, and it just expands your thoughts. And that's one of the things that I think is one of the most beneficial, is it just opens it up
Yeah, it does. And I'll even take snippets that I hear in the podcast, and I've written them on my whiteboard in my office, things that I need to focus on that I struggle with. So I'm looking at it right now. So I've got in one of the Craig Rochelle podcasts, he talks about as leaders, we need to listen, we need to learn, and we need to love. And that's difficult for me because I'm, default, what's the mission? What do we need to do right now? Let's get it done. We don't need to sit and listen and learn and love, but we do. Like, that's what I need to challenge myself on. So that's on the whiteboard behind me, or behind whoever's sitting in front of me at my desk. It's behind them. So I read that all the time. Or another one of Craig's great quotes is compassion interrupts. So that could be as simple as, I'm walking out into a different part of the building and I'm on task, I'm going to do something, but somebody talks to me and starts up a conversation, and is it interrupting what I was doing? In my mind, it's like 100%. Like, I'm trying to get there, do this, and then get back because I got other stuff I got to do. That's just how my mind works. But I'm being compassionate if I interrupt what I'm doing and take the time to talk to them, or go out of my way to stop what I'm doing and be interrupted and show compassion, to listen, to learn, and to love. And that's a challenge. I mean, I struggle with that every single day.
I think we all do, but I think the vulnerability that we have as leaders to say that we don't have this all figured out.
Yeah.
And we do struggle, and we're trying to get better. And I love that about, the leaders that are in this profession right now. And I'm going to take you back. Gosh, it's probably been a couple of months ago, maybe when we started talking about doing this podcast. And one of the things that you had mentioned to me is your view about training your replacement, or training replacements to take over this field. And when we were together yesterday, there was a young person, when we were all just kind of casually talking, and he made a comment, and it kind of just, I think is a testament of your leadership about how you lead and about your transparency. But he said, I want to be able to take your position in about 15 years. And kind of walk us through how important it is to find people that we need to rise up to be able to do what we do, because that is kind of counterculture, really, about, I'm a leader and I'm protectful and I'm not going to share with you what I know. But that's not the way that we build something that's going to outlast us. So walk us through that, Brian.
Yeah, no, I think that's his statement. It hits the nail on the head, but I think, like you said, for years, we kind of focused on, well, I'm in the job. It's my job. I'm doing it. I'm just going to do it. And I'm not going to share that wealth or that knowledge. But if we want the mission to be successful, long after we're gone, or if I fall off a roof and break my back and I can't work anymore, I want someone to step in and take my job, and not only continue to do my job, but do it better than I was doing my job. That's I think that's what our goal should be as leaders. So I think we try to identify the people that I think they have to have the want. You have to identify the folks that want to do it, because there's people that could do it, yes, but do they want to do it? Are they asking for more? Are they looking for work? Do they have that hunger? Are they trying to better themselves, go to college, get a degree, whatever education, critical care, so just trying to educate themselves and further better themselves. You identify those people, and then you pour into those people, and I look at the field training officer now, the ones that we're interviewing and testing and hiring now, and say, in 10 years, that person could be doing my job, right? So we need, it's not just who's going to replace me in my job as an assistant chief, which one of the captains is going to do that, but who's going to replace the lieutenant? What FTO is going to be here long enough to come into this role? And so you start as far down as that. But I think, that has to be our focus. We can't get so tunnel visioned that we just do the job and don't share that knowledge. We have to plan for tomorrow and plan for your replacement. And then, what better? Think of that as being the replacement. You're being trained by the potential position that you are going to take. How golden is that? Yeah. You have that opportunity. Even if you never take that job, everything you learned from it, if something similar comes available and you take that position, you've gleaned so much information and learned so much that I think it's a great concept.
I love that. And succession. I've heard this statement that you will be judged on how you leave. In other words, how is the organization or your team doing after you leave the position? Do they succeed or do they fail? And John Maxwell actually referred to that. I heard him tell a story about maybe it was a church that he had planted and it was doing really well. And then when he left, it completely fell apart. And he was like, that was ultimate failure in leadership. And I was like, wow, that's the first really person that I heard really talk about the responsibility of leaders, to leave it better for tomorrow. And I love that you do that. And you definitely role model that in transparency, and letting your team learn from you is such a big thing.
100%. And I had that unique experience with, when I was on shifts, one of the lieutenants, and I mentioned him earlier, Garland Lester. He was one of those ones that wanted it. He wanted to move up. He said, show me the work. Let me do the job. Show me how to do it. You're not sharing the knowledge, decentralized command, the Jocko, mindset. So I started doing that and started sharing that with him. And then ultimately he took my position on the shift as the shift commander when I moved up. So I had that blessing to be able to do that, and hopefully shared the knowledge with him to where he'll be successful.
That's incredible. So looking back, Brian, so we got people from all over the country that listen to this, and some are new into leadership, some are new into the profession, some have been doing it a long time like us. Looking back, are there any lessons learned that you think that would be beneficial for the viewers and the people listening would benefit from when you look back on your career? Any standout things?
Oh, 100%. And I try when we hire new folks into our department, we all try to, as leaders, try to sit down and just get to know them a little bit, share with them about, our experiences here, but then also give them I've coined it just pearls of wisdom. That's what I try to pass along to them. If I have the opportunity to speak to an EMT class that's, ready to graduate, I pass along the same pearls of wisdom. So I would say I pass those along. I think that it's taken a long time to learn a lot of these lessons, and most of them, I've learned the hard way, but some of them, I've just kind of picked up over the years. But I think I'd start by saying to be flexible. And that's incredibly hard for my personality type, is to be flexible. But you have to be flexible, in medicine, especially in emergency medical services, that medicine is ever changing, whether it's the patient status in the back of the ambulance or the different partners that you're working with, to anybody that you really interact with. You just have to be flexible. So I think that's something that we really need to focus on. And then another thing that you could even relate this to leadership, but to be a sponge. So soak in the good, soak it all in. You're going to soak in good. You're going to soak in bad. And then when the day's over, just wring that sponge out and get rid of all the bad and just retain the good. So that, that's from leaders that you encounter. That may be from other staff members. No doubt we all encounter people that are great, phenomenal providers. And then we encounter people that are on the opposite end of the spectrum. And then always continue to learn. Our job is it's not a get in and just coast. What we're teaching today, we're not going to be teaching in 10 years. What we taught 10 years ago, we're not teaching today. So you always have to learn. Don't get complacent. You just can't get complacent. I remember when my girls were little, we would watch, animated Disney movies and The Emperor's New Groove. So I always try to tell folks is you got to find your groove. So everybody's groove is a little different, but whether you're a brand new AEMT or you're a brand new paramedic, you gotta find your groove. Pick up the good habits from people that you want to emulate, keep those, and then recognize the bad habits that you don't want to retain, and don't do those. Just know that know that you don't know everything. Like you don't know everything. None of us do. And we get the idea in our head sometimes that we're top dog, especially as new providers, that I got this. I've run through all the mega codes in paramedic school. I'm good to go. And then as soon as you have that mindset that you think you know it all, you're going to get humbled for sure. I think treat every patient like they're your family. And this really is a point that I love to drive home, especially being in administration now, that, most of the times that I'm needing to talk to staff, it's because not that we gave the wrong medication or we gave the wrong dose, but that we didn't interact well with somebody. We said something, we acted a certain way, we used a certain tone, and maybe folks act like that with their family. I don't know. But, I think if you treat every patient like you wanted your mother or your brother or your sister or your father to be treated, it would solve so many problems. This is another huge one. Public safety breeds complacency. And in our job, that kills. So my father retired as a firefighter paramedic, and this is one thing that he always told me, is that public safety breeds complacency. And that's not just EMS. That's public safety as a mindset. You get in the job, you're in the system, and you coast and you ride your time. And people can get complacent. You work at a retirement station where the call volume is super low, you can get complacent. But in our job, that kills. Don't be a chameleon would be another bullet point that I would say. So don't be yourself, right? Don't mold into the people around you. Don't mold into the bad habits that your partner's emulating. Do the right thing when nobody's looking. And another great show that I love quoting shows and movies, but I don't know if anybody's seen Ted Lasso, but it's an amazing show, and it just has so many life lessons. But one of the things he says is never the wrong thing to do the right thing. And it's just so true, whether that's inpatient care or just using a ground guide, it's never the wrong thing to do the right thing. And then I think to sum it up, I would say that career pride, Department of Career Pride in the Army, we call it esprit de corps, but take pride in yourself. You put the uniform on, it's not about you anymore. You're a part of a bigger team. You represent a whole bunch of people. So, act the part, be the part, and just know that, take pride in it. We're a profession and we're professionals. So, and then lastly, I would say that our health, like our physical, mental, spiritual health as providers, is directly related to career stress. When my wife and I got married, my aunt and uncle took us out for dinner one night, and my uncle said that he described marriage as a rewarding struggle. And it kind of took me aback. And I was like, holy cow, a rewarding struggle. Like, what did I get myself into? He had been through some struggles with my aunt, and I was brand new married, not even a month. But here I sit 24 years later, having been married to my wife, Kelly, that I completely understand what my uncle was talking about. But I think the same thing could be said for our careers in EMS. It's a rewarding struggle because there's struggles every day. Every patient could be a struggle. Just getting to work some days can be a struggle. So I think to manage that career stress and to get through those struggles, you have to take care of yourself. You're going to see things that just make you mad, but you have to be physically fit. You have to be mentally fit. You got to have good habits, right? Good, healthy habits, I think, to manage those career stresses overall.
Incredible advice, man. We are so grateful. I cannot believe our time is about up, and man, you are like the role model leader that, adds value to anybody that you come in contact with. I've seen it. I know your team feels the same way. And okay. Man, we are honored that you are part of this community and that you spent some time with us today.
I appreciate it. I'm privileged to be able to have you listen to me. So to be able to talk it means a lot. Thank you.
Well, certainly a joy on our end. And yeah, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Eric.
Thanks for joining us today on the TIMSA Leadership Podcast. We hope this episode added value to you. You can check out full video episodes on YouTube. Also, leave us a comment about how a leader has inspired you. Also, a friendly reminder that Phil Sanderson leads our coaching calls. That occurs on the first Friday of every month. You can find out that information on the TIMSA website. Also, we're going to leave you with these words, as we do with every episode. The most important person that you will ever lead is you. We sincerely appreciate everything that you do for the communities that you serve. We are looking forward to seeing you again soon, and have a wonderful day.